What's up guys, it's the Hockey Radar tracking drafts and prospects, and today I'm going to recap the quarterfinals for the 2026 World Juniors, and then make my predictions for both the semifinals and finals. If you like videos like this, make sure to check out the rest of my page and hit that subscribe button for tons more prospect content. Starting off quickly with the relegation game, Germany came out on top 8-4 versus the Danes, meaning they will stay up next year while Denmark gets relegated to the lower division tournament. Good for Germany, showed lots of offensive skill in that game, David Lewandowski with 3 points and Dustin Wilhoff with 4 to bring his tournament total up to 7. Both forwards are eligible to return next year and will surely be their top players as they hope for a better finish at the 2027 World Juniors. Now on to the quarterfinals games. Sweden came out on top 6-3 versus the Latvians. As I predicted, Latvia was able to pot a few goals, but ultimately Sweden's offense was just too much for them to handle. Anton Frundell continues to excel with 2 goals in this contest, and what I did not see coming was the burst of offense from the blue line as Boumediene, Carroll, and Celine Wallenius each got a goal and Frey had 2 assists. Great timing for the defense to start picking it up offensively. Although losing in the quarters, Latvia had a great tournament, pushed Canada to overtime in the group stage, and they had already secured their spot at next year's tournament. Many of the Latvians will be aging out next year, which means their team will likely look quite different. However, arguably their best player, Albert Smits, will still be eligible, and after a strong performance as an 18-year-old draft-eligible defenseman, I am excited to see what he can do at next year's tournament. From game number 2, Czechia advances to their 5th straight semifinals with a 6-2 win over the Swiss. As I predicted, Czechia was just too much for the Swiss to handle. However, credit to the Swiss as they did hold the lead twice in the game and kept the game close until about halfway. Orsolek had some great saves when the game was close, which was crucial, and captain Peter Sikora and Yuri Klima led the way offensively with 3 points apiece as the Czechs continued their hunt for their 4th straight medal. As I predicted, the Czechs' blue line was huge for them with great games from Galvis and Jiricek once again, as they will be relied on heavily again in the semis against Canada. Switzerland will return next year with forwards Lars Steiner and 16-year-old Jonah Neuenschwander, along with goalie Elijah Neuenschwander, still eligible, who will likely lead this team at the 2027 tournament. From game number 3, what I called the most exciting quarters matchup, and it ended up being that way, Finland defeats the reigning champions US 4-3 in overtime to advance to the semifinals and get their revenge on the team who handed them silver at last year's tournament. In my last video, I predicted a Finland overtime win, and all game long it was back and forth, and overtime just seemed inevitable. USA gave up the lead late before crawling back and tying up the game, but it's Arttu Valala along with goalie Petteri Rimpinen who ultimately send the 2025 winners home very early in front of their home crowd. Shout out to Cole Hudson with 2 points in his return from injury, and shout out to Leo Tuva who scored the game tying goal and assisted on the go-ahead goal for the Finns late in the game. Very tough early exit for the US, who had their eyes set on a 3rd straight gold medal. However, they were just not as dominant and deep as those past 2 teams who were able to win gold. They rotated all 3 goalies all tournament, and none of them were able to find consistent saves and help out the team in net, which was always a question going into the tournament for the US and ultimately was one of the reasons they were sent home early. LJ Mooney, Will Horkoff, Chase Reed, and Brady Noling are all eligible to return, which is a decent core to build around, but a very disappointing end to the tournament for the US. From the last quarterfinals game, the biggest margin of the day, Canada beats the Slovaks 7-1 to advance to their first semifinals in 3 years, finally getting over their short-lived quarterfinals demons. Great offensive showing from the Canadians as they got production from almost every single player. Jack Ivankovic got the start, which I was really hoping for, but didn't really think it was going to happen. And after a solid showing in this game, I would assume he has the net on Sunday as well, so good on him, and hopefully he can keep up his strong play in net. Lots of goals in quick succession for the Canadians, and Slovakia quickly found themselves out of the game midway through. They did manage to get a goal on Ivankovic, but that was all they could muster up. As I predicted, the 3rd line of O'Reilly, Baudouin, and Desnoyers continued to produce, and they will be a big line for the Canadians against the Czechs in the semis. Tough loss for Slovakia. They were so close on every single game in the group stage, but clearly did not bring their A game today and just ran into too much talent with Canada. What's going for them though is a very young team with a lot of eligible returnees for next year who can build off this experience. Nemec, Krenko, Radivojevic, and Michael Pradl are all eligible to return, which should be very exciting for the 2027 Slovakia team. Now over to the semis predictions. The matchups will be Sweden-Finland and Czechia-Canada. Sweden-Finland, a rematch of last year's semis where Finland came out victorious 4-3 in overtime. This was actually a semifinals matchup that I predicted way back before the tournament started. However, I had the Finns winning back then, but now I have the Swedes coming out on top in this semifinals game. Don't get me wrong, I am still very high on the Finns, especially after seemingly returning to form against the US, but there's just too much to like about the Swedes to bet against them right now. They're getting production from all over the roster, and now also from the blue line. They've done a decent job defensively, and Luve Hirenstam has looked like the top goalie in this tournament so far. I think this game will be close, maybe even overtime, but I'll go with Sweden 4-3 or 5-3 over the Finns. Apart from the first 2 games, Sweden has put up at least 6 goals in their last 3 games. Their offense is buzzing right now and is showing no signs of stopping. I think the big boys Bjork, Stenberg, and Frondell are going to come up clutch for Sweden, and I think they'll play a very smart defensive game, as the D-core has just been getting better and better for me every single game. On the Finnish side, I still think they'll be able to score a couple goals, maybe even 3 or 4 against the Swedes, as they do have several very talented forwards, but there have been several games, especially against the tougher competition, where the Finns have struggled to keep the puck out of their own net, and although Rimpinen did come up with big saves against the US, he just hasn't dominated yet as much as he did last year. If the Finns do pull off the win, expect Kiviharu, Ruhinen, and especially Rimpinen to have their fingerprints all over the game. Maybe this could be the game where Rimpinen finally steals the show this tournament. To the other matchup, a rematch of last year's quarterfinals, and although Canada got their revenge in the group stage, that won't matter unless they can also get their revenge in the semifinals. Throughout the tournament, Czechia has been impressing me more and more every game, and I don't want to underestimate them yet again. However, Canada's form right now is hard to bet against. I think it will be a game similar to their group stage meeting, lots of back and forth, close all game long, with Canada eventually pulling away and coming up with a 5-4 or 6-4 win over the Czechs. I expect the Czechs to put up a very strong fight, with key players showing up like Sikora and Nestrasil, and Galvis and Jiricek on defense. I expect Orsolek to have a much better game than he did in the group stage against Canada, but ultimately I expect the star power of Gavin McKenna, Zane Perek, and now Michael Misa, who's turned it on as of late, as well as their entire third line, to continue to dominate games and pull out the win for the Canadians, sending them back to the finals for the first time since 2023. This will be a very good game though. Expect a hard-fought, exciting contest between these two teams who have developed a decent amount of history in the last couple of tournaments. Now getting into the finals, in order to cover all bases as simple as possible, I'll just say that if Sweden's in the finals, I'll take them over both Canada or Czechia, but if it's Finland, I would take either Czechia or Canada over the Finns. In my predicted final of Sweden-Canada, it would be a huge battle of talent, and this finals is probably best case scenario in my opinion, as it would be the 2 best teams in the tournament facing off for gold. Again, same reasoning for why I have the Swedes over the Finns. There is just too much to like about Sweden, and meanwhile Canada has had defensive struggles and some goaltending struggles. I just haven't really seen much of that from the Swedes. I think this game could go either way. Both teams have the talent and depth in all 3 positions, most likely needing extra time. I'll go with the Swedes 5-4 in overtime to capture their first gold medal since 2012 and handing Canada its first silver since 2021. Sweden's best chance to win will come from their top players, Berglund, Pettersson, Stenberg, Frondell, and Bjork, as they will try to find holes in Canada's defense that has struggled at times this tournament. I also think this would be Horenstem's best game of the tournament, which will be huge for the Swedes if they can shut the door on Canada's high-powered offense. Canada's best chance to win will come from their power play, which has been deadly, and their depth, as their third line has been very strong and producing every single game. They will also need a big game from whoever is in net, whether it's Ivan Kovic or George, as they too will need to be able to shut the door on Sweden's elite offense. This is my prediction for the next 2 rounds to close out the tournament. Still lots of hockey left to play, and huge matchups are ahead. I expect both semifinals to bring the fireworks and possibly be the best games of the tournament. At the end of the tournament, I will do a World Juniors recap video, so stay tuned for that. Comment your thoughts down below, comment your finals matchup, and who you think will take gold this year. Like and subscribe, and stay tuned for tons more prospect content.